Hello, how's everybody doing? Hello, hello. See my people in here. Hi, everybody slowly rolling in. Good afternoon and evening. I'm seeing some of you from previous sessions, so it's good to see some of you guys in here again. Let me go ahead. I'm going to promote Jullien right now. You'll have to come back in, Jullien, to come back in as a panelist. But we'll be good to go. I'm excited that y'all are showing up and y'all are ready to learn more about real estate. How's everybody doing? Let me know in the chat box how you're doing today. All right, Jullien, let me give you, okay. So what I'm gonna have to do, I'm gonna go ahead while I'm recording now. So I'm making Jullien a host, and I don't have control over it anymore. Jullien has control over it now. So Jullien, now that you're a host, we can see you. Hey,
All
Fred.
right, good. What's going on, sister?
How are you doing? It's so good to
Doing
see you.
well.
Just a wonderful face to see. So everybody, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I like to respect people's time and so forth. But this is recorded, so if you guys are watching the replay, hey, this is also the folks from blacklove.com have been sharing these on their platform as well. So hello to those of you guys who are watching it on Black Love. And welcome to everyone. Welcome, Jullien.
I'm glad to be here.
Yes, I'm going to turn it over to you briefly and really quick in a minute.
Right.
But guys, hi, I'm Tonya Rapley, founder of My Fab Finance, financial educator, mompreneur, best-selling author. And this is day 4 of our Level Up series. The week is flying. You know, if you want to make quarantine fly, have to show up somewhere every day and do something, because this really is like, my week is just like, wow, we're already on day 4. So far we've had so much informative content shared on the Level Up series. The first day was life happened to my finances. Now what? The second day we talked about making investments during this time period, particularly investments in the stock market, understanding your 401k and navigating that. And then yesterday we spoke about understanding your 2020 taxes, because this has been an eventful year already. We're just in the 4th month of the year, and it's been eventful. There have been a lot of changes, unprecedented changes to this year's tax season. So we covered that with Belva Anakoenzi. And today we are going into real estate, because I know I've gotten this question at least every day, Jullien, at least once a day, whether now's the time to buy real estate. So really quick, I'm just going to introduce Jullien, and I know he's going to go and introduce himself before we get to the questions. I have known Jullien for a long time. I've known Jullien a long time. At least spans back to before My Fab Finance. We met briefly. Our worlds were already trying to interact. I actually was at his wedding celebration before I became Jullien's friend. Fast forward, we've had the pleasure of working together. He introduced me to my church home in Brooklyn. And we've just really grown as family over the past couple years. And I'm so thankful for him and so proud of him and honored to call him a family, honestly. And I remember when he purchased his first property, and now he's on his 11th, y'all.
Yes.
11th. So Jullien, go ahead and tell the people more about yourself.
What's going on, y'all? It's Jullien Gordon here, aka Mr. Multifamily. You might see me as that on Instagram, and I'm just committed to helping as many people as possible get free. I'm inspired by the ancestor spirit, Harriet Tubman, and she freed 300 people over the course of about a decade by making 19 trips below the Mason-Dixon line to free her family first, friends, and then anybody who wanted to come. And so I believe that multifamily real estate is the above ground railroad. It is literally just sitting there in front of our eyes. And I'm trying to take as many people to freedom as possible on that journey through the multifamily movement.
Yes, and Jullien, guys, is one of the most structured people that I know. Talk about structure and discipline. There's a method to everything, and that's what I appreciate. You know, as someone who has kind of an abstract perspective of things, Jullien has a method for everything. Jullien was a person who introduced me to my public speaking coach. Jullien has introduced me to so many other things, part of his mastermind and holding me accountable. Part of the reason why the money manual was written, because I announced it on stage at his event. So you are in good hands. Jullien is going to go ahead. I have some questions that I have put together for him. And then we're going to flow this the same way that we've been doing the other ones. If you have questions that come up while Jullien is talking, just put it in the Q&A section, and we'll get to those when we get to the Q&A. We will make sure that we answer your questions. Even if you have to leave, come back and watch the replay so that you can find an answer to your question. And if anyone has to leave, let me go ahead right now. Jullien, can you share where they can find you so that people can go ahead and start following you? So if they have to leave, they won't miss out on being connected with you.
Yeah, I'm going to put this in chat really quickly. It is at Jullien Gordon. It's 2 L's, at Jullien Gordon on IG. That's the best place. And then you can go to getfreenow.com, getfreenow.com, and that's where you'll find a lot more information.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's get rolling. I'm going to do it like Drake. I got my questions in my phone. So my first question for you, Jullien, is most people recall others getting rich because of the recession of 2008. And when I say getting rich, you know, even leading up to it, that was part of what caused the recession because of the type of home loans and just some of the unethical practices that were occurring during that time. But there were a lot of people who were ready. And when the recession hit, they were able to snatch up real estate, flip it and everything else and profit off of it. So how do you think that this recession that we're entering now, we've been in for some time, but now it's like everybody knows that, oh, we're definitely in one now. So how does this differ from the one in 2008 at all?
Yeah, so that recession, that one came off the backs of, like you said, a lot of malpractice in the lending industry. And once some of those bad loans started to come to fruition, then it just created a domino effect. So the last recession in many ways was caused by the housing industry, where in this case, the housing industry is not actually the cause. We have a different cause, that Rona, you know, we got a different cause, and the housing industry definitely will be affected. But because of the regulations that were put in place in the mortgage industry and the banking industry as a result of the last recession, I don't think that the financial industry will crumble as hard as it did then in terms of this recession. So I see them as different, but different causes, but the same patterns. These are the same patterns happening over and over and over again throughout history. So if you look at a lot of people are afraid to buy right now. A lot of people are just in fear in general. And you know, you are leading the brand of being a wealth creator in the brand that you're building there. We have to stay in a wealth consciousness. But right now, many of us are being provoked into fear consciousness and poverty consciousness. And so we're in this midst of lack, the government throwing out money like we're in the Roman Empire throwing out bread. Like we're in this mindset of lack instead of staying in a space of abundance. And it can be hard to stay in this mindset of abundance when there is so much perceived scarcity around you. But if you can develop that muscle, you will actually be able to see through all the fog and actually see clearly what's actually happening and how you can take advantage of it. It's kind of like those snow globes when you're shaking them, right? When the snow globes are shaking, you can't see anything. But when you just be calm and just be still and you let it all settle, then there's clarity. And because I've been through this, because I quit my job actually at the bottom of the last recession, January 9th, 2009, was when I quit my job. And the reason I was able to do that is because I was moving through faith. I was moving by faith. I wasn't letting what my eyes were telling me, these two eyes, which deceive us oftentimes. If you just look at your dating life, you may see that your eyes have deceived you many different times, okay? So these eyes don't tell us the truth, okay? The 2009, the average housing price of a home in the United States was $208,000. Okay. And as of last quarter of 2019, the average house in the United States was $324,000. So that is over a 10-year period. That is a 55.7% growth in appreciation. Just because you bought, you didn't even have to do anything to the house. Just because you bought, you are actually $116,000 up on average. Okay. So if we follow the same patterns, then we know that this is actually going to be the time to buy if we want to be up 10 years from now in terms of our appreciation. But if you get fearful and you get scared and you freeze up, then it's actually going to prevent you from getting free. So people got two choices in this environment. You're going to freeze up or you're going to use this time and space to get free. And I hope that through this webinar series and everything that you actually choose to get free. You have a choice. You are not a victim in this situation. You have a choice in terms of how you think and how you move. And we are here to help you get free.
Yes, yes. So So many questions off of that. Guys, if you have questions related to, make sure you put your questions in, because I'm going to follow up with another question, which
Yeah.
is, people are navigating, fear and scarcity. And guys, again, if fear is something that is encapsulating your heart right now or at the forefront of your consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
turn off the media. Like, that's one thing that I really had to realize and needed to be done in my own personal life. First week in quarantine, I was reading all the articles. I was like, feel my thing with Corona. What's going on? And then all of a sudden I realized that it was creating anxiety and panic in me. And I stepped back and asked myself, Tonya, what's different about right now than like when swine flu happened? And like, you were so carefree then. And then I didn't have cable. I didn't have an iPad. I wasn't on social media, and I was oblivious. Something was happening around me and I was oblivious to it. So I realized, like, you have to go back and kind of go back to your bubble so you can think logically about the scenario rather than what the media is telling you. So, and with that given said, this is an opportunity for people to think about, what makes the most sense for them. And I want to hone in on why it would be smart to buy real estate right now for some people with a certain amount of uncertainty there.
Yeah.
And is there a certain time frame that you recommend for people kind of wait for things to shake out or kind of settle a little bit, like the snow globe, things
Yeah.
kind of settle so you can see a little clearer?
Very much so. Very much so. Great question. So, in 2.2 seconds, it has switched from a seller's market to a buyer's market. Okay, just like that. And the thing is that sellers are having dreams right now, and they are having disillusionment. They think it's still February, and so they want to still get the price that their home was actually valued at as of February, but it ain't February anymore. And that's how quickly a market can change. So what's going to happen is where stocks, they correct really quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stocks, people can sell those and liquidate those really quickly. And so you saw what happened in the stock market. What's going to happen with the real estate market is that sellers, they're going to stay in their dream that their house is still worth what it was in February, despite what's going on all across the world. And they're going to put the price out on the market as what they were hoping to get in February. And what's going to happen? It's going to sit. And it's going to sit, and it's going to sit. And then they're going to try to drop it $10,000. Then, oh, yeah, I'm willing to forgo $10,000, et cetera. And it's going to sit. It's going to sit. And it's going to sit. Part of the reason to switch to a buyer's market is because financing guidelines have actually got more restricted over the past week. So FHA, for the 3.5% down program, it went from 580 as your minimum credit score to 660. So you have a smaller buyer's pool now, which means that buyers have the upper hand if all these sellers want to sell. And the sellers want to sell because they thought they had all this appreciation, which has now been taken out. And those who had multifamily homes that didn't buy right and now have 10 couldn't pay as of yesterday, right? They're gonna have to start coming out of pocket to pay these mortgages that they weren't paying before, and some of them didn't buy right, and they weren't actually saving using a vacancy rate or their Capex or repair reserve. So they actually have nothing to pull from when it's time to make not only where they're living, their single family home, but also their multifamily property. And so they're going to have they only have one choice, two choices, which is to foreclose or to sell. Right. So it is immediately switched to a buyer's market, and it's going to take sellers a little bit of time, a little bit of pain to wake up, to realize, oh my goodness, if I cannot keep paying $2,000. I was paying nothing. I was getting cash flow as of February. And now I got to come out $2,000 in addition to my own mortgage over here. Mm-hmm. I can do that. I did it for March. Now I got to do it for April. Okay, let me go use this bank's forbearance program, and the bank is going to allow me to forbear this for 3 months. Forbear just means push back. And some banks are going to make them do a balloon payment in, June or July. Some banks are going to make them do a balloon payment after that 3 months. Some banks are just going to add it on to the end of the loan, okay? But interest is still accruing during this time. And so once that starts to settle, once those forbearance programs are done, then they have to actually start coming back out of pocket, and they're going to feel the economic stress and the financial stress, and that's going to send the price of real estate down. And that is your time to strike. That is going to be your time to strike.
That is so informative, and you're just a perfect person to have on for this, because I've been telling people, like, you definitely want to wait, like, no sooner than 3 months, definitely like look 6 months out. Because that's when we'll kind of see what's going to happen as a result of all this. Right now, it's so new. It's so new. People are kind of like, okay, I haven't lost my job yet. So and so and so. The government, they waived evictions for the next 2 months and so forth. But
Yeah.
we'll really see what's going to happen in the next coming months.
Correct.
So thank you for sharing that. So let's move into, so you're the multifamily millionaire.
Yep.
Why did you choose multifamily as opposed to flipping or wholesaling, which are other ways that people generate revenue when in the real estate market?
Because I'm here for generational wealth. I'm here for generational wealth. Flipping and wholesaling, you might be able to get some 5-figure checks that way, but I'm here for generational wealth. With multifamily real estate, when you're a buy and hold investor, there's no capital gains, right? When you flip or wholesale property, you're going to have to pay capital gains on that, and that capital gains could be upward 20-30%, right? So you just thought you made $30,000, but now $9,000 is going straight back to Uncle Sam. But when I buy multifamily real estate, I actually get a lot of tax savings from the property. I'm not getting tax, I'm getting tax savings because I'm able to depreciate this property over 27.5 years. And what's unique about multifamily real estate that you can't do with a single family home, unless you're renting it out, is that you get to depreciate an asset over 27.5 years to a useful life of nothing, yet the asset is still useful.
Mm-hmm. The asset still has
So
value at the end of that.
Yeah, so you're taking these tax deductions. So 27.5 years, let's just say I have a $300,000 property. I'm taking about $10,000 in deductions on that every single year. But the property, if I upkeep it in the way that I do, and I maintain my properties because I want them to last a long, long time. Some people just buy properties and just let them go to nothing, and then they want to sell it at the market rate, but they haven't done anything. The roof is leaking, all kinds of stuff. So there's that, right? So I'm here for generational wealth, not just for some quick checks. I'm willing to play the long-term game. And when I look at multifamily real estate, especially in this time of uncertainty, it is actually, in the time of uncertainty, you want to hang on to something that's certain. So from a spiritual perspective, you go back to God. A lot of people are using this quarantine, these 40 days, just like Jesus did. They're going back to their source, right? Their job was never their source. They're going back to their true source, right? Same thing from a financial standpoint. You want to go back to what's certain. And what has been certain is multifamily real estate. When you think about the feudal system was in 900 AD in Europe, right? And the feudal system is 1100, that's 1100 years ago, right? 1100 years ago. And in the feudal system, kings gave land to lords in exchange for loyalty. Kings gave land to lords in exchange for loyalty. So where do you think the word landlord came from? It came from the feudal system.
Got you.
So this is a business model. This is the number one subscription business model in the entire world, better than Netflix, okay, better than Amazon Prime. And it's been here for 1,100 years. I cannot guarantee you that Apple will be here 1,100 years from now. I can't guarantee you Tesla will be here 1,100 years from now. I can't guarantee you Google or Amazon will be here 1,100 years from now. But as long as human beings are still on this earth, multifamily real estate will be here 1,100 years from now. Okay.
People will be renting. Yeah.
Yeah. People will still need a place to live. Mm-hmm. So there's 4 benefits of multifamily real estate that these other things like flipping and wholesaling don't offer. There's one, the cash flow. Once you flip or wholesale a house, you're not getting cash flow. You got a check, but you're not getting cash flow every single month, right? So that's the first benefit, and that's the primary benefit that a lot of people focus on. But there's 3 other benefits that people forget, but that could actually make up half of your return. That is the tax savings. Okay, meaning that I'm getting to take all these deductions, not only on the depreciation of the asset, but on all the expenses related to it. Me driving to go over there, me paying for the plumber, etc. I mean, getting deducted that all from my income. Then don't forget, you have tenants who are actually paying down the debt. So it's not you paying down the debt. That's somebody else that's paying down the debt. Okay. So that's the third one. And the fourth one is appreciation. And appreciation on real estate has typically been on average 3% per year. So you have 4 benefits with cash flow, right? You have tax savings, you have appreciation, and you have principal pay down by the tenants. The other forms of real estate don't offer all 4 of those benefits. And I'm here to make sure that I have something to pass down. You can't pass down a flip or a wholesale to your children, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But I can pass down doors of multifamily real estate, and I have 30 of them. So, and this is just the beginning. I haven't been in this game for like long, right?
No.
So this is just the beginning, and I can only imagine what it's going to be 10 years from now, especially if I move powerfully in this economic recession that has a lot of people in fear.
Absolutely. Oh man, Jullien, it's just, Okay, so the next question is, all right, so someone is wondering, okay, so I'm considering purchasing multifamily real estate. You're located in New Orleans and so forth. Are there certain cities that are better for multifamily units, or
Mhm.
pretty much is any city you're in prime for a multifamily property? Yeah, let's start there.
Yeah, so yeah, you got to look at your market. Of course, in places like New Orleans, where the shotgun home is like standard to the architecture here. New York, where you have the 3-floor brownstone. There's Philadelphia, same thing, where these are like renter cultures. But whereas you go out to Omaha, Nebraska, that's going to be single family culture, right? But there's still people who can't afford a single family. There may be more people renting single families there, but there's going to be some multifamily there, but just not nearly as much as you'll find in a Philadelphia, New York, or New Orleans. So you got to look at your market. And if you can't find multifamily property in your market to invest in, then you just got to keep driving out, 30 minutes out, an hour out. Okay, what's the next town over after that? And we go find through research, right? Through research, we find the next opportunity, the closest opportunity that's going to have multifamily real estate that is profitable for you to invest in. So I encourage people to invest in this way. One, try to invest where you live. Okay, that's first. Now, if you can't do that because you're in an expensive market like San Francisco or New York and the prices are too high, next is go invest where you're from. Okay, so wherever you're from, especially if you come from a small place, that's actually going to be the new trend. That's where people are going to go. They're going to go back to these smaller markets. So go dominate if you're from Birmingham, Alabama, go dominate there, even though you live in New York, right? Your money's going to go longer. When I came from New York, because I was in Brooklyn, that's where I got my first property in 2013. When I came down to New Orleans, it felt like I was shopping at Ross. But not just shopping at Ross, it felt like I was shopping at the clearance rack at Ross. Because in New York, right, the average home was $1 million,
Million, yeah.
right? So you're trying to put 25% down on $1 million, and I only say 25% because that's what an investment property costs. But the strategy I teach is using the 3.5% down FHA loan, only 3.5%. But I already had my first property, so I knew if I wanted to be a real estate investor, it was going to take a minute to save up $250,000 to buy another property in New York. So I went to a different market. And when I came down here, my money went longer. It was $200,000 for a double, right? Now, of course, the rents aren't as high as they are in New York, but I could get in the game here, right? So you got to find your market. So one, try to invest where you live. If you can't do that, invest where you're from. If you can't do that, invest where you want to be a contribution. And if you can't do that, just go invest wherever you can make money.
Got it. All right, perfect. Okay, so how does someone know they're ready to purchase this year?
So you got to have some things in place. Okay. There's 4 things you got to have in place. The 4 C's. One, you got to have credit. Credit is actually numero uno. All right. Especially if you're going to use FHA. Like I said, FHA as of last week was 580 credit score, and 580 is low. If you haven't taken Tonya's credit etiquette course, then you need to take that to get that score up. Okay.
580. I can't
That's
believe
low.
they were. Yeah.
And they were lending to people on 580 as of last week, but they moved that up to 660. Okay, so you need to have a decent credit score. And some of you trying to fix your credit on your own and don't have the discipline, and you've been trying to fix it for quite some time, please go pay for credit repair. Just go pay for it, because paying how much is credit repair? $500, $1,000?
It depends. Some people charge $99 a month. A lot of people on the subscription model mode.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's just say it's $1,000. Go pay for the credit repair, because if it shifts your interest rate on your loan from 4.25% to 4%, you know how much that's going to save you over a 30-year mortgage? That's going to save you tens of thousands of dollars, just that 0.25% shift. So go pay $1,000 now to save tens of thousands of dollars later on just a 0.25% interest shift. So that's numero uno. Then you need cash. Okay, you typically need about 10% if you're using FHA. You're going to need 3.5% down for the down payment, and then 6% for the closing costs. So whatever the price of the home is, you're going to need probably around 10%. So if you're buying a $300,000 home, you're probably going to have to have saved up about $30,000. But there are a lot of down payment assistance programs, and there's some that will actually wrap your closing costs into the loan. Okay, so don't be afraid of that. All right. The next thing is you're going to need cash flow, and you're going to have to show proof of income, right? You're going to need a certain income. Now, there's no standard income. It all depends on your market. $50,000 a year is going to go not as far in New York as it's going to go in New Orleans, right? So I can't give you a number in terms of your income. Your income is going to be based on your market. The income you need to buy in the market that you're seeking to buy in, that's going to determine the average price of a multifamily home, of a 2-family, a 3-family, or 4-family. When we're talking multifamily, we're talking 2-family, 3-family, or 4-family. Once you get to 5 families or more, that's considered a commercial property, and that doesn't qualify. And what makes this asset unique is that the same financing process that you would go to for a single family home is the same financing process you would use for a 2, 3, and 4 family. There's only 2.6 million multifamily homes in the United States. They only make up 18% of the rental supply. So the asset that I'm teaching you to go seek out is a unique asset, and people are after them. Okay, people are after them. So that's what you're going to need. You're going to need credit. You're going to need cash, or you're going to need cash flow. And the fourth thing that you need is confidence. You need confidence. There's just some people who just end up shopping. They actually just love watching I think they get high off of just watching HGTV and saving things in Zillow. They just, that's the, looking at
we working now. We working. And
I'm all about visioning. I'm all about visioning and seeing the place that you want to be in, etc. But at some point, you gotta pull the trigger. You gotta go make an offer. Put in an offer. Okay. Otherwise, we're just gonna stay in this loop, and the price of real estate is gonna continue to rise while you shopping and shopping and shopping. It don't care. It don't care what you're waiting for. It's gonna continue to rise. So at some point, you gotta just get serious and say, I'm going to make an offer, and you can't be scared. So having the confidence, knowing that you're making an educated decision, is actually key.
And, also I wanted to add, when you said cash flow, about salary, another thing people need to keep in mind is just because you have a high salary doesn't mean that you automatically would get qualified or be qualified for a property, because they also take things into consideration, such as your debt to income ratio. And so you also want to keep that in mind. Yes, you might have $100,000 salary, but if you have student loans, you have car payments, you have credit cards and so forth, your salary isn't as good as someone who makes $50,000 and doesn't have any debt, or, has lived a debt minimal lifestyle. So it's important to keep that in mind as well.
Banish the balance. Banish the balance.
Banish the balance. And, we're in the process. So we are in the process of looking for our home and everything. And we're right in it. We're going through the pre-qualifications and everything. Actually got to talk to you offline, because we're looking at Atlanta. I think I've talked to you somewhat about Atlanta before, but now this entire scenario, everything has made us realize how much more important it is for us to be closer to family, within driving distance of family, how much more important it is for us to have our backyard space, for us to be able to be self-sufficient, for us to have a garden in the backyard, chickens and everything else that we want in the backyard. And so this experience has actually accelerated our desire to move a larger metropolitan area. So I'm happy that you mentioned that people are probably going to go back into more rural or suburban settings now, because we're seeing what's happening in New York with density, and people are seeing, the risk of density. And, a lot of us, so the last pandemic was the last pandemic was 1918. A lot of generations, my grandmother wasn't around during then. So they kind of forgot about what density did in that scenario. And so they moved to the large cities and so forth. Now we're going to see people kind of spread out and kind of leave larger cities for a little more space and distance from their neighbors. And so I'm happy that you did bring that up. So let's move into, so recession-proof real estate, that's what we're talking about. What are the main things to look for when buying real estate during a recession?
So this is key. All right. So HGTV has been training a lot of people's eyes, and they've been training you to see the world of real estate the wrong way. Okay. But HGTV, right? They say, look, how much you get approved for? I got approved for $400,000. How much is the house? Is $385. Do I like it? Yes. All right, let's go and get it. 3 criteria when it comes to HGTV. When it comes to investing in multifamily real estate, because remember, I don't just want you to have a property. I want you to have a portfolio. There's a difference. 2 different mindsets. Somebody who's just looking to be a home owner or a home buyer. Let's just keep it real. When you get the keys on HGTV, what do they call you? They call you a homeowner. Are you really a homeowner in that moment?
No.
You're a home buyer. You only own 3.5% of your home. The bank owns 96.5% of your home. So we have to be very careful with the language that they kind of sell us with the American dream. All right. So when it comes to multifamily real estate, there's actually 23 numbers that you need to know. It's 23 numbers that you need to know to be able to evaluate whether you should purchase or pass on a deal. And you want to look, you want in this kind of economy, you want to be buying with built-in equity. So what does that mean? That when you get the appraisal, that the appraisal is higher than what you have the contract for. So how do you determine that? Let's just say in February, this house was worth $400,000. What I'm doing right now, my offer strategy right now is offering 80% of what the February value was. Okay. So 80% of 400 is $320,000. That's what I'm offering. Cause I want to be able to weather this storm, and I want to be able to walk in to this property with equity in it. Okay. We may get into negotiations. You may counter and come back at 350. And I may say, okay, I know that this property will get back to 400 in 5 to 10 years. I'll take that. Right. But my offer strategy is going to be 300 and 320. And why are they going to start to talk with me? Is because the buyer pool right now is limited because the financing guidelines have gotten less. So they're like, oh, they thought they were going to be able to get offers within a few weeks. Oh, there's people still with jobs. I saw the energy company. They're still doing well, etc. My lights are still on. People will make offers, and then they hear crickets after they put out this big number that they wanted because of what they thought they were going to get in February. So you want to buy in with built-in equity. Right now, my offer strategy is 80% of asking. That was not my offer strategy as of February. My offer strategy of February was different, okay? So the other thing you want to look for is cash on cash return when you're buying multifamily real estate. Single family real estate has no cash on cash return, okay? Single family home is not an asset, y'all. I know that's what your realtor told you, but keep in mind that your realtor, they're not a real estate investor. Real estate agent is not a real estate investor. Go ask your real estate agent to calculate cash on cash return. Ask your real estate agent how many doors they own. They don't. Okay. So real estate agents are in the business of selling single family homes to American dreamers and getting them caught up. They're not going to show up when you can't pay your mortgage because one of you lost your job. They're going to be there for the picture when they sold you the house though, and they got that commission. And just hear some of the incongruence is that the higher the price of the home, the more they get paid because it's a commission. That's like a weird incentive that isn't actually in your favor. So you have to be thinking like a real estate investor, and then you have to lead your real estate agent. They're the ones who can submit the offer. They're the ones who can negotiate for you. They're the ones who can show up for the inspection process. You need to show up for the inspection process too, but you lead your agent, okay? So cash on cash return is basically what is the cash flow that I'm going to get from this, the positive cash flow after I pay my mortgage, which is, or PITI, which is principal, interest, taxes, insurance, but then also my Capex, my repair reserves, my vacancy, because I need to account for those. What is my leftover money after rent? So let's say rents are $3,000, and all of those things together, my mortgage, my PITI, and my Capex, my repair reserves, and my vacancy is $2,500. So that leaves me with $500 cash flow every single month. So over the course of a year, that's $6,000. Okay. Now, if I put in, let's say I put in, I'm trying to figure out an easy number. Let's say I had to put in $60,000 for the down payment, for closing costs, and for some fixes. Okay. Let's say I had to put in $60,000. 6,000 in cash flow over 60,000 is 10%. So that means my cash flow on this property, the way my $60,000 that's in there is working, it's working at 10%. Okay. When I'm doing deals, I want my target is 15. In some cases, if the property is right and I believe that there will be great appreciation, I'm willing to go down to 12%. But you have to know how to calculate cash on cash return. Now, 10% is not bad because guess what? Your savings account, it's only giving you 0.03%. Okay? Your savings account is giving you 0.03%. And so if you know the rule of 72, the rule of 72 says take 72 divided by 0.03, and that will give you 2,400. That means that at 0.03%, it will actually take you 2,400 years to double your money in a savings account. 2,400 years. But if your return is 10%, you take 72 divided by 10, that means that every 7.2 years, you will be doubling your money through real estate. And that's just the cash on cash return. We haven't added in the tax benefits, the principal pay down, or the appreciation. And for those of you who are heavily invested in the stock market and may have lost in the past few weeks, the stock market, the S&P 500, is only grown by 4.23% over the past 20 years on average. Now, everybody says, oh, the stock market grows by 10% every single year. No, it doesn't. Go do the math. The stock market has grown by 4.23% every single year for the past 20 years. All right. So you got to know your numbers. And if you can actually get your money to be working harder for you somewhere else, you want it to work harder for you. Okay. You want your money to be working for you. And you want it to be as productive as possible. If you are actually saving money, your money is being lazy. Your money is just sitting there flipping through TV channels. It's not doing anything for you. So you want your money to be working out there. I got employees. My employees are called Benjamin Franklin. They called Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, and Hamilton. I send them out to work every single day, and they better bring back friends.
Bring friends with you.
Yeah.
Jullien, really quick, you in that you touched on the breakdown of what the different allocations of the money that comes in from a rental property. You mentioned Capex. Can you break down what those are again? Because I know the reserve fund and so forth, but can you break it down for people who might not be familiar with because when you get paid rent from a tenant, it doesn't just happen. You pay the rent, the mortgage, and then the rest is yours. So can you break down where else that money needs to go before it's deemed yours?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So these are numbers that most people overlook. And anytime you're about to invest in a real estate deal, just as a passive investor, please make sure that they are accounting for Capex, repair reserve, and vacancy rate. What are these things? These things include Capex is setting aside a little bit of money every single month for major things that are going to have to be fixed over time, like the roof, like the foundation, like the paint, like the plumbing. So let's say the plumbing, it needs to be repaired every 10 years. The roof needs to be repaired every 12 years. You're setting aside money, a little bit of rent money every single month to build up this reserve account. So when those big expenses come, you're not like, I don't have any money to do that. Same thing for repair reserves. Repairs are for little things. Oh, there's a leak under the kitchen sink, or the toilet won't flush. There's rodents here, etc. Then you have to pay somebody $100 to come do something there. That's your repair reserves, okay? And then what I say, vacancy rate. This is what's going to catch a lot of people up in the coming months, is that they didn't set aside money for vacancy rate. Vacancy rate is typically 5% of rents. So if your rents are $2,000, you would set aside $100 a month for vacancy. $100 a month for vacancy. And that stacks up over time, right? And what vacancy rate at 5% suggests is that 1 out of every 24 months, which is about 5%, this unit is going to be vacant. Somebody's going to have a baby and want to move. They're going to get a new job in another city. Has nothing to do with the quality of your landlordship, or you just may have selected a bad tenant and you're going to have some turnover. So you anticipate for that. You set aside money, $100 a month, to stack up for that inevitable time where somebody moves, and you still have this reserve account so that you can pay the mortgage that month. So these are things that people don't do. They just see the money in their account and they're like, oh, that's my money, I'm about to go on vacation. And then when the roof hits, the roof has a huge leak and it's going to cost $5,000. Like I'm doing my roof in New York at $6,000 right off the bat, but I'm not worried. Why? Because I've been setting aside this money for my rents. I have a reserve account for that. And that $6,000 is not even depleting the reserve account. That's money that you have to hide from yourself. Otherwise, because if you see it, it's like when y'all been home for this quarantine, when you got food in the fridge, all of a sudden you hungry, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's there, but you're not really hungry. What they say about the kids, you stay on your school stomach. Kids in the fridge every 10 minutes, they say, stay on your school stomach. You ain't no refrigerator at school. You ain't walking in the refrigerator every 10 minutes at school, right? Same thing with money. If we see it there, we spend it. So it's money that you literally have to hide from yourself, or else you're going to get caught up when situations like this come and 1 or 2 tenants can't pay, and you don't have anything set aside to make sure that you can fill the gap.
Yeah, thank you for breaking that down. Guys, I see your questions coming in. We're going to get to them. I just have a few more questions for Jullien that hopefully this will answer some of the questions you all have. So in the process of securing a multifamily unit, what's an average timeline? I mean, now I know you're a pro at this, like you turn them around quick, but for someone who is newer, what's an average timeline for them to expect from, I found this property, my money is right and everything, to close and actually taking ownership?
Yeah, so there's a couple steps. There's getting pre-qualified, and the bank, they typically have their own timelines. But let's say you find a property, okay? You make an offer. They have 3 days about 3 days to respond, and then you get the purchase agreement signed by them, and then you send that off to your title company along with your good faith deposit. Then hopefully you've gotten pre-qualified by the bank already. Actually, you will have you will have to have gotten pre-qualified. A lot of people are shopping for real estate and you haven't even been pre-qualified. So
You don't
what if
even
you
know what
find
you
the
can
perfect
afford.
house? You find the perfect house today, but you haven't gotten pre-qualified. Guess what? That house is going to be gone by the time you get pre-qualified. Okay. So when you're making an offer, the seller is going to want to see that you have financing lined up or they're going to pass up on your offer. So part of the process is actually getting pre-qualified first, which means sending the bank a whole bunch of documents that show them your cash, your credit, your cash flow, right? So that's a process in and of itself. And depending on the bank, that can be slow. This is called underwriting. And they're just making sure that they're covering their bases because they're about to let you borrow a lot of money. Okay. Then once you make the offer, they have 3 days to respond. They respond. And now the bank is doing this thing. Now you have a 10-day inspection. Okay. 10-day inspection period. You're getting your inspector to come out to go look and see things that you can't see. Okay. The HGTV didn't teach you, right? Your inspector can't see through the walls, but they've seen enough houses to know when things are off. Okay. And you have 10 days to get that inspection as well as come up with your property inspection response, right? And your property inspection response, you say, this was an issue, this was an issue. I'd like a $10,000 credit on the price or whatnot. Okay. They look at that. They have a couple of days to respond. They either accept it or reject it, et cetera. Then after that, you have the bank will start sending out an appraisal. The bank has to go get the property appraised, and the bank wants to make sure that if you're paying $300,000 for this home, that it's worth at least $300,000. So they'll send out their own appraiser. Okay, that can take some time, and then after that, the title company or simultaneously, the title company is doing all their work to make sure that this person who's claiming to sell it to you actually has the right to sell it to you. So they're checking the title, they're looking at the city records, making sure that this person actually owns the property and can transfer it to you during the sale process. So that can take, from the moment you make your offer, that can take anywhere from 30 to 45 days. Typically in the purchase agreement, you set the close date, the desired close date, and it's typically around 30 to 45 days.
Perfect. Thank you so much for breaking that down.
Mm-hmm.
Second to last question.
Yeah.
And this is actually personal, but this is kind of personal. You have 11
Yeah.
properties. Do you have a property manager, and when do you think it's necessary to hire a property manager?
I have property managers in Oakland and in Brooklyn because I'm not there. And you need that from a distance. But here in New Orleans, what I typically do is I take a moment to stabilize my property structurally and from a tenant standpoint. And once my properties are like kicking and everything is all right, and I know that the building is stable from a structural standpoint and that the tenants are high quality tenants, then from there, what I do is then I will pass it off and release it. So I can actually move to 100% passive from there. Now, a property manager will take 10% of rents typically. So if your rents are 3,000 for 2 units, 1,500, they'll typically take 300. If you select, there's some properties that I have where I selected my tenants really, really well, and I have no issues whatsoever. So I'm like, do I really want to pay somebody $300 when I know that these are high quality tenants and there's no issues with this building? So sometimes I'll say, no, I'll keep it. But when I have properties that are further out that I don't want to drive to, and tenants that I may have inherited that I don't want to deal with, then I may have a property manager for those kind of situations because I just don't want to deal with it.
Got it. Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my last question before we have 10 questions in Q&A, so I'm going to make this question brief. Should real
Cool.
estate that needs major renovation or repair be avoided? What is your opinion on that?
It's a skill set. So it's a skill set. I wouldn't suggest it as your first property. You're going to need, you can get burned by a lot of contractors. They require a lot of cash. So you close on the property, right? And unless you got a 203K loan, it's going to require a lot of cash to do those things. So you're going to have to be cash rich in order to execute on that. You're going to need great contractors. And if you have a full-time job, you won't be able to show up to that property every single day to actually monitor, project manage it. So a lot of things will likely get done wrong. So I would not do that as my first property. I would go get an asset that is livable and ready to go through it with an FHA loan. And then once you've built up some equity and you have cash flow and you're ready to move on to your next property, maybe consider that for property 3 or 4. But I didn't do a fixer upper until like property like 7 or 8. And that's when I did the BRRRR strategy and did a cash out refi after buying that property without the bank, putting money in to fix it, forcing appreciation, and then refining to get my money out of the deal. So I have very little money in the deal, and the property still cash flows. But I would not recommend that for the first property.
Perfect. Thank you so much for breaking that down, Jullien. All right, so let's get into these questions. You guys ready? Jullien, you ready to answer some
Yeah, I'm
questions?
ready.
Okay, so this first question is, what if you own a single home already? How would you recommend going about getting into multifamily properties?
Ooh, that's the one. That's the one. So I'm sorry that the American dream got you. Okay, it got you, but there are about 6 ways to reverse yourself out of that situation. They're kind of detailed and there are different strategies. Only 2 of them require you to sell your property. It all depends on how much equity you have in your property, whether you have emotional attachment to your property. Do you have a significant other? Do you have children? Like, these are some of the things that I would take into account to help determine whether or not, or what strategy would actually work best for you, given that you bought a single family home. If you have no attachment to that home whatsoever and it has value in it, you might want to sell it and then use those proceeds to go invest in multifamily and use your FHA over again. A lot of people ask if there are several ways, can you use FHA more than once? There are some strategies. I cannot tell you them on camera. I cannot tell you them on camera, but there's some ways. Okay, there's some ways. They say he will make a way. There's some ways. Okay, and so the F and FHA does not stand for first time. The F and FHA does not stand for first time. A lot of people make that connection mentally. It doesn't. It stands for federal. Okay. So there's some ways to use FHA twice, but you have to be very strategic in order to do so. So you're not fully trapped. Okay. And if you have no emotional attachment and you're ready to become an investor, because what I'm really committed to helping people do is get to rent and mortgage freedom. When you buy a multifamily home the right way, you immediately get to rent and mortgage freedom. That's what happened for me in 2013. I went from paying rent in New York, which you know can be ridiculous, to getting this property, living on the first floor, having tenants on the other 2 floors, pay the entire mortgage, property tax, insurance, Capex, repair reserve, and vacancy rate, right? And still give me cash flow on top of that. And imagine, so for most of you, your rent and your mortgage takes up at least 1/3 of your salary, or your, what they call your income, but it's really not your income. Your salary is your revenue, okay? I need to make this clear. Your salary is not your income. They call it your income, but it's not your income. In a business, income is revenues minus expenses equals income. Your salary is actually your revenues. Then you have your living expenses, and what's left over at the end of the month, that's your true income. So 2 people can be making $100,000. As Tonya said earlier, one lives off of 80, the other one lives off of 50. Who has more income? They have the same revenues, but they have different income. So you got to see, there's a lot of trickery in the American dream that I have you thinking, oh, I'm a home buyer. Look at the income that I have. That's not your income. Your income is what's left over at the end of the month. So you got to be very careful with that. So.
Yeah. Okay. The next question is, would you recommend having a realtor in a buyer's market?
You always need a realtor.
Yeah,
you always need a realtor. Yeah, please do not skip that step. You are not a professional. You don't have access to the MLS. I don't think, can you actually, no. I mean, there are sellers who can try to sell their home without a realtor, but you as a buyer should have a realtor. You should have a professional. You should not try to go wing this. This is not a deal or a transaction that you try to wing. Okay. Yes, there's going to be a commission that the realtor gets. You're trying to save 3%, but then you get burned by $50,000.
Yeah.
Right? It just doesn't make sense, right? Go pay a realtor, right? But you need to be more educated about the investment than your realtor. Okay. You need to be more, you're a real estate investor, your agent is a real estate agent, 2 different things. So you use your agent. The way you search for multifamily real estate, you don't just go tell your realtor, I want this square footage, I want this many bedrooms, I want it in this neighborhood, and then they put you on some automatic email and you just sit back and hope that a deal is going to fall in your lap. That's not how this game works. If you really want to find a deal, you have to be out there pounding the pavement. Real estate is a contact sport. You have to be in contact with people. You have to be in contact with properties. Okay. I have a real estate Rolodex of over 70 people here in New Orleans who know what kind of property I'm looking for. So I have 70 sets of eyes that are sending me deals when they find them, from contractors to lenders to realtors to wholesalers, right? I have different people sending me properties via text message, email all the time. The best deals are not on Trulia and Zillow. You think that you're going to just go save a property on Trulia Zillow, then after work, you're like, oh, I'm going to go check this out this weekend, this and that. If it's truly a deal, it will not be there this weekend because I would have already made an offer on it. Before you even got to your lunch break, I would have had an offer in. Okay, so you're not going to find properties on Trulia and Zillow. The best deals are actually found offline and off-market deals, and because once deals hit Trulia and Zillow, you have more people looking at them, and they command a 30% premium over properties that are found off-market.
Perfect. Perfect. Someone else had that question, so you answered another question in that answer. So we have a question. I know very little about this type of investing, but I'm very interested. Can you give any details on how many FHA loans you can have in your name? And after you max out, what type of loans would you be eligible for?
You can only have one in your name, but there are some ways to get it twice. Yes. You can only have one in your name. Okay. But if you got some kids that can get qualified, that have a certain income and credit, etc., and then you're gonna pass the house to them anyways, there's some ways. Okay. There's some ways. All right. So yeah, you can only have one FHA loan in your name.
And outside of FHA, what are other sources of funding that people could utilize to get a multifamily?
Typically conventional after that. It's typically conventional, and conventional can be anywhere from a 3% down payment to a 25%, depending on the type of property that you're buying. Perfect. And your credit and your cash flow.
Perfect. Thank you, Jullien. Okay, so do you suggest living in a multifamily home that you purchase, or should you live in a separate residence? Excellent question.
You only have to, with FHA, you only have to live in there once. You only have to live in there for 1 year, I mean. With FHA, you only have to live in the property for 1 year, and then you move out, you start renting that at $1,200 a month, you go buy your single family home, right? And now this tenant is actually paying your mortgage on your single family home. That is called house hacking. That is the goal. That's the way we get 2 assets in our family's name, and you are living rent and mortgage free.
And that's an important note that Jullien made, is that with an FHA loan, you have to live in that multifamily. So someone was basically asking, could I purchase a multifamily unit using FHA financing and not live there? No, you do have to live there.
Just for 1 year though.
So it's not necessarily even optional. You need to live there for a year, and then you can move on. So
I gotta say this. My first home in Brooklyn, it's a decent home, but it wasn't my dream home, but it made my dreams possible. So sometimes you have to make these sacrifices, like living somewhere for a year, to have an asset that will be in your family for the rest of your life. Like, these are some of the trade-offs. See, some of y'all are so caught up in your apartments. You talk about how nice your apartment is, the neighborhood and all that. The reality is it's not yours. If you were renting, you were homeless. If you were renting, you were homeless. Okay? So next time you have a dinner party, don't put "come over to my house" on the invitation. Put "come over to Tommy's house" and put "come over to
Don't do that, Jullien.
That's where I've been saying. That's where I've been staying. I've been staying at their house. Like, if you were renting, y'all over here painting the walls, putting up bookshelves, y'all sweeping the front yard and things like that. It's not yours. You're not on the title and you are not on the deed. So let's just be 100 about the situation. In fact, you were supposed to be temporarily renting to position yourself for ownership. If I were you, if I were doing it over again, when I was renting a place, I would never unpack the boxes, because that would remind me that I'm not supposed to be here. This is a temporary thing. But we unpack, we get all uncomfortable. We call it in my house, and you train your subconscious mind into renter's mentality. Your subconscious mind is like, oh, we safe, we good. But the reality is that you're actually homeless. But here's the deal. You all have the internet right now. You have technology. You probably have some good education. You might have had a good job as of last week. I don't know. You hopefully making some decent money. But the reality is that there is somebody who's actually homeless, sleeping outside tonight. Mental health issues, probably went through some traumatic stuff in their life. And how is it that this person who's gone through all that owns as many properties as you do? 0. You 30, 40, 50 years old. How is it that that person who's actually sleeping on a bus bench tonight owns as many properties as you? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So my prayer, and my prayer life is strong, and my prayers manifest, as you can see. My prayer is for all of you out there renting. I pray for you. More rats, more roaches, and more bed bugs. I think that's the only thing that's going to make you uncomfortable enough to get up, get out, and get something.
Jullien, that's so true. Shamika said no housewarming for her apartment. Shamika, you know what, girl?
Exactly, because it's not yours.
It's not yours, but I also advocate for, sometimes you never know what it took for someone to get there. And so celebrate that milestone, but then also understand that it's a step towards your next option.
Just remember, don't forget, because
yeah.
So you know, sometimes we're born into rent. Some people are born into renting, so that
Especially
renting
in people in
mentality has been
cities
there
like New
from 0 to
York.
18. And yeah, in
Yeah.
New York, and you just stuck in it. You can't even fathom ownership. And then there's some people who are born into their parents owning a home, but then you leave home, you start renting in the college dorms. That's renting, right? Because you didn't own it. Then you renting after, and we get caught up in renter's mentality when we know that the only way to create wealth is through ownership, and
Hmm.
this is your biggest expense. And so this should be the first thing that you take care of. Yeah, it should be the first thing that you take care of. Being able to get to rent mortgage freedom off of one single decision is what really freed me up to be able to walk in my purpose every single day. Because I never had to worry about rent. I knew I would have a place to live that would be paid for. I haven't paid a housing expense in the past 6 years. Not one housing expense. What would that do for you? What would that change for you if you never had to pay a housing expense for the rest of your life? And so that's why it's so important to me. Because for me, freedom isn't just kicking my feet up on the beach and doing nothing. Right? That's not freedom for me. Vacations are cool, but that's not freedom for me. Freedom is being able to live in my God-given purpose every single day. And so I know that this asset, having this in your family and it being bought right, will free you up to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So right. You're so right on so many things. So we have a few more questions and we
Yeah,
supposedly
I'm
have
here.
five minutes left. So I'm going to go into this. Brenda asked, I'm sure other people wants to know, I'm new to multifamily investing. Are you open to being a mentor? Not a mentor, but he does have a program. You can tell him about your program really quick, Jullien.
Yeah, I have a webinar coming up on Tuesday at multifamilymasterplan.com. I can put that in chat. Multifamilymasterplan.com. And you can join that and learn more. We go deeper than we went here tonight. Yeah, check that out. That'd be the first place to start.
Okay, perfect. And then moving to the next question,
Yeah.
where can I find foreclosures for sale? Do you need a realtor to find these types of properties for purchase?
Foreclosures, that's going to come through relationships. Having a great realtor who understands that market. So remember, most realtors, they're just trying to make some bread, right? So they're, again, selling single family homes to American dreamers. But there's some realtors who specialize in foreclosure. There's some realtors who specialize in multifamily. So you want to seek and do research to find realtors who understand the foreclosure game in your market, because foreclosures work differently in different cities. The auctions work different in different cities. So you want to, do your research. You have to do research.
Okay, perfect. And then the next question is, we live in New York City, so we are looking outside to start. What are your thoughts about buying a single family as a rental property?
Usually it's just not going to cash flow in the same way. There are markets where single families do cash flow, but if you lose that tenant for whatever reason, you have no money, right? So it's the diversification of having a triplex or a fourplex, and in some cases a duplex. It just creates more stability for you. And this is about navigating uncertainty. One way you navigate uncertainty is multiplying your streams of income. And so having four tenants is better than four good tenants is better than having one.
Mm-hmm. Next question. This comes from the Black Love team. Can you know any dangers to watch out for? For example, how do you make sure you have enough set aside for reserves from the beginning, from the jump, before you even get into the game? Because yeah, you could purchase a property with the goal of having enough from the
Stacking
mortgage and so
reserves, yeah.
forth to build your reserve. How do you make
Yeah.
sure you have enough?
Yeah, so it all depends on your risk tolerance. But if you're risky, then if you don't have a high risk tolerance, then you want to go into that deal with 6 months of reserves. That means your pity, your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance at least. Okay, and if you based on your others with different risk tolerance, you might say, I just need 3 months and I'll be able to figure it out from there. So it all depends on you, and we all have different levels of risk that we're willing to take.
Good, good. Next question is about moving on to your second property or second
Yeah.
deal. So for buying a second multifamily, do you have any suggestions or ideas about purchasing it if they don't have that 30% down? Do you suggest refinancing your first unit, or what suggestion do you have to move on to
You
the
got
next?
a couple options. So it's 25% down. It is, you can get a HELOC on your current home, or you could refinance to get cash out of your current home, and then take that and go invest. So there's different ways, or you just choose to go to a smaller market where you can get in the game.
Perfect.
I know we have visions, and me too, of having properties all near each other, things of that nature. Sometimes it doesn't align like that, right? I have had several properties on one street, and I do my properties do. There is a chunk of my properties that are all in like one neighborhood, but sometimes it doesn't play out like that. So sometimes you got to go elsewhere to be able to get in the game when you decide to become an investor. This is why I had to leave New York. If I stayed in New York, I wouldn't be an real estate investor, because I would have had to save up $250,000 just to make a down payment on $1 million property. And it takes a while to stack up $250,000. Some people can't even fathom having $250,000 in their bank account. Okay. So I knew that I was going to have to move differently in order to create wealth. And I'm glad I did.
Yeah. And so Karen is in Atlanta and she says she wants to put her home on the market. Should she do it now or wait? I need to sell my home so I can be ready to get a new home when the market like bottoms out. So,
She can go see if she can catch a fish. If she can go catch somebody who just loves her home, falls in love with it for whatever reason, then she can try, and it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt her to try. But I'm sure that real estate prices are going to go down.
they're already going down.
They're already going down. So yeah.
I'm getting notifications every day from
Yep.
Zillow.
Yep,
Every day
that's what it is. So it's just a function of time, and you couldn't have planned for this. But hopefully your home has still appreciated. So just because it's gone down doesn't mean that it's gone down below what you paid for it, right? So let's say you bought it for $200,000 in Atlanta. In February, it was worth $350, and you're able to sell it at $325. You still ate. You still eating. Okay, so if you're going to make that decision, if you're firm, then I would just go get it up as quickly as possible before it goes down, because we don't know where the bottom is.
Okay, I'm gonna breeze through these next questions so
Yep.
that Jullien can have his evening and I can get to feeding Paris and getting him to bed. So are you familiar with VA loans? Do you have to live in a property if you get a VA loan?
You do, and VA loans are amazing. It's one of the best loans in the United States, and I want to thank you for your service. So VA loans are awesome. That is an asset that you have, because in some cases you can do 0% down on a VA loan. Okay.
And my parents qualify for them. Then they not doing anything other than that. So explain the people who say I can buy your house today companies. Should you use them? Okay, so I guess this person. Okay, so this is the same person who asked the question about selling their house in Atlanta. Should she look into the buy here? We buy houses. We buy ugly houses. People.
No, those people actually don't buy your houses. Those are called bandit signs, and those are called wholesalers.
Yeah,
they don't actually buy your house. They'll come get a contract on your house, and they'll go try to sell that contract to someone else and take some of the gap. So what they do is they do research, or they put up these signs and have somebody call, and they see that this house is worth $300,000. They can get it under contract for $250. They convince you on $250. Then they go sell the contract to somebody else for $300, and they keep that $50. That's called wholesaling. So that is not how you want to sell your house. You want to use the best realtor possible in your city. Not just any realtor, not just your friend. You want to use the best realtor possible in your city.
And all real estate agents are not created equal. All lenders are not created equal. Everybody does not do their job the same way. So you definitely want to make sure you have you going into there with a pit bull. You don't want a Yorkie going and doing deals for you. So next question. I purchased a condo with the intent to rent it out and purchase another property. I do have an FHA loan, but have been told that I cannot buy a multifamily because it would not be an upgrade. Is this true?
Wait, has a condo.
She has a condo. She purchased a condo on an FHA loan, but she wants to rent it out so she can move into another property. But she's told she cannot buy a multifamily because it would not be considered an upgrade.
Yeah. So the lenders, they don't understand wealth. They're taking your money, so they understand wealth in some ways. But the FHA perception is that going from a single family or a condo into a multifamily is going backwards. That's their perception. Okay. But in reality, that is the pathway to wealth. That is one pathway to wealth. The true pathway is to buy multifamily first at 3.5% down and then go to your single family. But if you do have a single family already, they perceive you as going backwards if you're going from single family to multifamily, because the American dream is so programmed into people's mind of it, single family being the end goal and end game. So that's why you're getting that pushback. Whoever wrote that policy probably didn't understand wealth. And so we can't change that policy. So that is their perception and how they operate. So if that condo has no emotional attachment for you, and it's restricting you from expanding your real estate portfolio, then it may be something you have to release.
Perfect. Thank you, Jullien, for answering that. All right. So there's two more questions. One of them is a bit of a personal question. So I'm going to ask this one first. Because I think this relates to quite a few people. We know someone who purchased a multifamily through NACA. This person was going to use NACA, but they asked you to stay in the property for 10 years. Is NACA good to use for a multifamily due to this?
Yeah, NACA is a great program. With their lending guidelines, those are the softest lending guidelines in the entire world next to VA. Okay, so NACA
and rates, yeah.
And rates. So go get a property with NACA. But at some point, if you want to expand your portfolio before that 10-year mark, you're going to need to refinance out of the NACA loan, even though the rate is absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So NACA might help you get in and
Yeah.
start rent hacking so that you are able to build your savings and so forth. But there will come to a point where if you want to proceed and purchase more properties, then you're going to have to refinance out of that NACA product.
Yeah.
And so this last question is the one, what if my goal is to have multiple streams of income, including real estate, don't have children, not leaving the properties to anyone? Is multifamily still the way to go, or would wholesaling or flipping be better in that case if they want to have multiple streams of income, including real estate as one of them?
But you don't want
to leave it to anybody.
Don't want to leave it to anybody. Depends on your age. So if you just let's just say your cost of living, given that you're single, chilling, is $4,000 a month, right? If it's $4,000 a month, you probably need to have bought maybe two or three triplexes the right way, and those will produce over $4,000 in positive cash flow. They'll produce probably 15,000 in rents total, right? But they'll produce about 4,000 to 5,000 in positive cash flow. At that moment in time, you never have to work again for anybody else. Okay. So if you're just trying to live your best life, then you could acquire these three assets to make sure that every single month your basic living expenses are covered, right? And then that also gives you the foundation to go take other risks, because right now you on YOLO. You only live once. You ain't got to leave it to anybody, etc. But this could be a positive cash flow stream that guarantees that all your living expenses are paid for. And because you ain't got nobody to pass it to, when they appreciate, you could refi and take that money and go continue to live your best life. And when you die, then it just goes. Bank takes it back and it's gone, right? So getting to that. So financial freedom is the moment when your passive income is greater than your cost of living. And I reached financial freedom about 4 years ago, complete financial freedom. So I never have to work a day of my life again. And I get to do exactly what I choose because my rental properties, they surpass the positive cash flow that they provide me, surpass my cost of living, and will do so for the rest of my life. I'm a very simple man. I don't do a lot of crazy stuff. And I don't have a lot of crazy stuff. I don't need a lot of crazy stuff. So that's the goal. And the thing about people of color is that we've learned to have joy off of very little. And I'm not saying that some people call that resilient or resourceful, but when it comes to getting free, that actually positions you to get free faster than somebody who needs $100,000 a year to be happy. Okay, so if somebody needs $100,000 a year as their baseline just to have a smile on their face, then they're going to have to acquire like 200 doors in order to get there. But if you actually can be happy and find joy off of $48,000 a year, you don't have to acquire nearly as many. You could acquire half and get to freedom faster than somebody who needs more. So, yeah, that's how I would play that. And because you're not leaving it to anybody, just having something that is not based on active income. You want passive income. Our whole life, we're taught active income, active income, active income. We're trying to get away from that. And financial freedom is a point where you don't have to engage in active income anymore if you don't want to. I still have active income, but it's not required. My baseline is covered by my passive income.
Yeah. Jullien, you're amazing. Thank you so much. But we knew this though, right? We knew this. But I'm happy that everyone else who has tuned in and everyone who's watching this replay knows that as well. As Jullien posted in the group, he has a webinar coming up, or posted in the chat. He has a webinar coming up next week. So you want to make sure you go to multifamilymasterplan.com to register for that webinar. He always has webinars. He always has informative information. This is someone you want to learn from. I learned from Jullien. Like if you learn from me, I learn from him. And as far as following him on Instagram, he got his Instagram game together. I'm proud of him. I remember we were talking a couple of years ago.
I went to her for coaching on that though. She
couple of years ago. And now he has Instagram game together. So it's Instagram.com/Jullien. That's 2 L's IEN Gordon.com. I didn't know there were so many ways to spell Jullien until I became his friend. And yeah, there's so many ways to spell Jullien. But his is 2 L's IEN Gordon. And so with that said, we are going to conclude this investing in recession-proof real estate. I hope you are inspired. I hope you are empowered to take action. I hope you're understanding how to navigate this current time, to use it as an opportunity to position yourself to level up. That's what we're talking about, is leveling up. Jullien, if you have any closing words, I'll let you give your closing before I officially outro us.
Yeah, so I just want to praise Tonya for stepping up to the plate to support all of you and all of us in this moment. She didn't have to do this. This is an absolutely free thing that she decided to do because she cares about her people. And you are her people. And I was on board the moment she sent out the email. So the lineup that you put together is amazing, and it's really addressing problems that people are facing and answering questions that people are facing in the midst of this crisis. And that's when leaders show up. They show up in the midst of crisis, and they show up with open arms and a big heart. And so we just want to celebrate you for answering the call and putting this together so quickly.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. And now it's time for us to get our plan together. You know, we're moving to, so we got to definitely talk about that, because it's in motion. It's actually in motion right now, taxes and everything ready for it. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for taking time out on your Thursday evening or Thursday afternoon. If you're in LA, late afternoon. Tomorrow is Yaya Smith. So Yaya is also based.
Don't miss Yaya. You got two Orleanians coming at you back to back.
Yes, Yaya is fire. She is my sister in change and creation. Yaya is also based in New Orleans. We're going to talk about creating a lifestyle that serves you. So Jullien has spoken about how he's been free for the past 4 years and he's been able to create a lifestyle that serves him. Yaya is going to talk about how do you do that, especially when you have children and so forth. Jullien also has a beautiful baby girl, but how do you do that? Yaya is a mother who's homeschooling her 3 children. She has a younger, her daughter is a little bit older than Karis, running her business, running her home, and has really created a life that serves her. She's created a life around what's most important to her, which is family. So we're going to talk about how do you begin to use this opportunity to do that, so that the next time a recession happens, you don't have an essential job where you have to be out in the streets uncomfortable, or, you know, a pandemic happens. You can be in the comfort of your own home doing what you do, making money, which is what I'm thankful that I've been blessed to do. I don't have to leave my house if I don't want to, because I've created a life that serves me. And we're going to talk about how to create a life that serves you. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye.
Peace.
And then Jullien, you'll have to end the meeting because I made you.
All right, cool. I got it.